The great hall stretched for miles in every direction. Its walls were made of crystal that changed colors like a rainbow. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in floating chairs that moved without sound. Some had scales, others had fur, some were tall as trees, others small as children. But all of them had one thing in common today. They were afraid. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the center of the hall. She was the only human in the room. Her black uniform looked simple next to the fancy robes and armor worn by the other species. She kept her hands at her sides and her face calm. But inside, her heart was beating fast. Above her, a voice spoke in perfect English. The words came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The Galactic Council will now hear the case of the humans. A platform rose from the floor. On it stood Ambassador Kethver of the Zephyrian Collective. He was 9 feet tall with blue skin and 4 arms. His eyes glowed like stars. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the hall. "Council members," Kethver began, "we face a problem unlike any before. A new species has joined us from the third planet of System Sol. They call themselves humans." Murmurs filled the hall. Some beings clicked their tongues. Others made sounds Sarah had never heard. She stood still and listened. "For the past year, we have watched these humans," Kethver continued. "We have studied their history. What we found troubles us greatly." The crystal walls around the hall began to show images. Sarah saw Earth from space. Then the images changed. She saw wars, battles, cities burning, soldiers fighting with guns and swords and bare hands. The images showed thousands of years of human conflict. In their short history, humans have fought over 5,000 major wars, Kethver said. They have created weapons that can destroy planets. They have killed billions of their own kind. They are a violent species that knows only war and hatred. Sarah watched the images change again. Now they showed human art, music, literature, scientists working in labs, doctors saving lives, children laughing in schools. But these images lasted only seconds before more war scenes appeared. Yes, they have culture, Kethver admitted. They have science and art, but look at their true nature. The images now showed recent events: human ships attacking alien vessels, human soldiers on other worlds. But Sarah knew these images were not complete. They did not show why humans had fought. They did not show that humans had always tried peace first. They did not show that humans only fought to protect the innocent. "These humans cannot be trusted," Kethver declared. "They are too dangerous, too unpredictable. We have a choice. We can let them join our peaceful galaxy and watch them destroy everything we have built, or we can act now to protect ourselves." The hall grew quiet. Sarah could hear her own breathing. She looked around at the thousands of faces staring down at her. Some looked scared, others looked angry. A few looked sad. "However," Kethver continued, "the Council has decided to give humans one chance, one warning." He stepped down from his platform and walked toward Sarah. Even though she was tall for a human, she had to look up to meet his glowing eyes. "Captain Chun," he said, "you speak for all humans today. Listen carefully to what I tell you." Sarah nodded. "I'm listening." "Your species ends its violent ways here and now," Kethver said. "You will follow galactic law. You will not make war without Council permission. You will not seek revenge for old wrongs. You will not hold grudges against other species." He paused and moved closer. Sarah could smell something like ozone coming from his skin. "If humans break these rules, your entire species will be destroyed." He continued, "We have weapons that can turn your sun into a black hole. We have ships that can crack planets in half. We have done this before to other violent species. Their names are forgotten now. Their worlds are dust." Sarah felt cold fear run down her spine. She believed him. The technology she had seen in just the past year proved the galactic races could do exactly what they threatened. "Do you understand these terms?" Kethver asked. "Yes," Sarah said. Her voice was steady despite her fear. "And do you accept them on behalf of all humanity?" Sarah thought of Earth. She thought of the colonies humans had just started building on other worlds. She thought of her daughter back home who was only 5 years old. She thought of all the humans who would never be born if she said no. Yes, she said. Humanity accepts these terms. The hall erupted in sounds. Some beings cheered. Others made noises that might have been relief. But many stayed silent. Kethver nodded. Good, then this matter is settled. He turned to walk away, but Sarah spoke again. Ambassador Kethver. He stopped and looked back at her. You should know something about humans, Sarah said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through the hall. What is that? Kethver asked. Sarah looked around the hall. She saw thousands of eyes watching her, some curious, some hostile, some afraid. Humans don't forget, she said simply. Kethver's forearms moved in what might have been a shrug. What do you mean by that? We remember kindness, Sarah said. We remember those who help us. We remember friends who stand by us when times are hard. She paused and looked directly into his glowing eyes. But we also remember those who threaten us. We remember those who hurt innocent people. We remember injustice. We remember betrayal. The hall had grown completely silent. Even the soft humming of the floating chairs had stopped. We don't seek revenge, Sarah continued. We don't start wars for no reason. But when someone hurts those we love, when someone breaks faith with us, when someone commits evil against the innocent, she let the words hang in the air for a moment. We remember, and we make sure justice is done. Kethver stared at her for a long moment. Is that a threat, human? No, Sarah said. It's just who we are. We wanted you to know. Noted, Kethver said coldly. He turned and walked back to his platform. The council session ended soon after. Beings began filing out of the hall. Sarah stood alone in the center, for several minutes watching them leave. Some looked back at her as they went. Their faces showed different emotions. Curiosity, fear, respect, disgust. As the hall emptied, Sarah thought about her words. She had not planned to say them. They had simply come from her heart, but now she wondered if she had made a mistake. Had she made things worse for humanity? A small being approached her. It looked like a cross between a cat and a bird with soft gray fur and large golden eyes. Captain Chun, it said in a voice like wind chimes. Yes? I am Ambassador Yuki of the Kalorn Republic. We voted to give humans a chance today. Thank you, Sarah said. Your words at the end, Yuki said. They were honest. In our culture we value honesty above all else. What did you think of them? Sarah asked. Yuki tilted its head. I think many species will remember them, some with fear, others with respect. And you? I think, Yuki said slowly, that you gave fair warning. Just as they gave you fair warning, Sarah nodded. That's all I intended. Then I hope for both our sakes that no one tests whether humans truly remember, Yuki said. It spread wings. Sarah had not noticed before and flew away. Sarah was left alone in the great hall. The crystal walls had returned to their original soft blue color. She took a deep breath and began walking toward the exit. As she walked, she thought about what lay ahead. Humanity had been given a chance. They would follow the rules. They would be good citizens of the galaxy. But if anyone ever betrayed that trust, if anyone ever hurt innocent humans, if anyone ever forgot that humans were people too. Well, they had been warned. Humans don't forget. 5 years had passed since the warning. Captain Sarah Chun was now Admiral Chun, and humanity had surprised everyone. Instead of causing trouble, humans had become model citizens of the galaxy. Human doctors worked in alien hospitals, saving lives with new medicines. Human engineers built bridges and cities on worlds where other species said it was impossible. Human teachers shared knowledge with young aliens who had never seen Earth. Human artists created beautiful things that made even the oldest species stop and wonder. The colony on Kepler 442b was humanity's pride. 50,000 humans lived there, in peace with the native Savari people. The Savari looked like walking trees with gentle faces and voices like singing birds. They had welcomed humans with open arms 5 years ago. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in his medical clinic on Kepler 442b, treating a young Savari child who had fallen from a tree. The child's parents watched nervously as Marcus cleaned the wound. "Will she be okay?" the mother asked in careful English. "She be fine," Marcus said with a smile. "Just a small cut." "She's very brave." The child giggled and touched Marcus's hair with her wooden fingers. "Soft," she said in her musical voice. Marcus had come to love this world. The air smelled like flowers and rain. The trees grew in spirals that reached the clouds. The Sylvari had taught humans how to live without hurting the planet. In return, humans had taught them about medicine and technology. As Marcus finished bandaging the child, his communication device beeped. A message appeared on the small screen. It was from Admiral Chun on the human space station above the planet. "All department heads report to station immediately. Emergency meeting in 1 hour." Marcus frowned. Emergency meetings were rare. He finished with his patient and took a shuttle up to the station. In the meeting room, Marcus found the other human leaders from the colony. Captain Torres from security, Engineer Young from construction, Teacher Morrison from the schools. They all looked worried. Admiral Chun entered the room. Her face was serious in a way Marcus had not seen since the council meeting 5 years ago. "I have bad news," she said without sitting down. 3 hours ago, the research station at Vega 7 was destroyed. Everyone started talking at once. Vega 7 was a peaceful science station run by the Cologne Republic. Ambassador Yuki's people, they studied space dust and solar winds. They had no weapons and no enemies. "Quiet," Admiral Chun said. "There's more. The Galactic Council is saying humans did it." The room went silent. Marcus felt like ice water had been poured over his head. "That's impossible," Captain Torres said. "All our ships are accounted for. I can prove where every human vessel was." "At the time, I know," Admiral Chun said. "But the evidence they're showing looks real. Video recordings of human ships attacking the station. Voice recordings of human officers giving orders to fire. Even pieces of human weapons found in the wreckage." Engineer Yang leaned forward. "Can we examine this evidence?" "The council has already voted," Admiral Chun said quietly. "Emergency session this morning. They've decided to quarantine all human space until an investigation is complete." "What does that mean?" Teacher Morrison asked. Admiral Chun walked to the window that looked out at space. In the distance, Marcus could see ships approaching. Lots of ships. They were not human. "It means," Admiral Chun said, "that no human ship can leave our territory. Any human found outside the quarantine zone will be destroyed on sight. All human colonies outside the Sol system are now cut off." Marcus felt sick. "For how long?" "Until they decide we're not a threat anymore," Admiral Chun said. "Or until they decide we are." The ships were closer now. Marcus could see they were warships from many different species. Zephyrian vessels with their blue hulls. Cologne fighters that looked like metal birds. Even some species Marcus didn't recognize. "Admiral," Captain Torres said, "my security teams are picking up weapons signatures from those ships. They're targeting our station." Admiral Chun nodded. "I know. Everyone needs to stay calm. We're going to follow the law. We're going to cooperate." "But we didn't do anything wrong," Teacher Morrison said. Her voice was shaking. "I know," Admiral Chun said again. "But someone wants the galaxy to think we did." Marcus watched the alien ships take positions around the human station. More ships were arriving every minute. It looked like half the galactic fleet was here. "Who would do this?" he asked. "Who would frame us?" Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment. "I have suspicions. But we need proof." A new voice filled the room. It came from the communication system and belonged to Ambassador Kethver. "Human Station, this is the Galactic Enforcement Fleet. You are hereby ordered to surrender all weapons and submit to quarantine. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction." Admiral Chun walked to the communications panel. "This is Admiral Chin. We will comply with council orders. But I want to speak to the council about this evidence." "The council has heard enough human lies," Kethver replied. "Surrender now or face the consequences." Marcus saw something change in Admiral Chen's face. It was subtle, but he had known her for years. Her jaw tightened slightly. Her eyes got colder. "We surrender," she said into the communicator. Within hours, alien troops were boarding the human station. They wore armor and carried weapons, but they were not violent. They simply took control of all systems and ordered humans to stay in their quarters. Marcus was allowed to return to the planet to continue his medical work, but only under guard. 2 Zephyrian soldiers followed him everywhere. The Silvari people were confused and frightened. They asked Marcus why the Sky people thought humans were bad. "I don't know," Marcus told them honestly. "But we'll figure it out." Days turned into weeks. More news came from other human colonies. The colony at Volf 359 had been cut off. The research base at Proxima Centauri was under alien guard. Human trading ships had been impounded at every station, but the worst news came from the outer colonies. The farming world of New Texas had tried to evacuate civilians when the quarantine was announced. Alien ships had opened fire on the evacuation vessels. 3,000 humans had died, including children and elderly people who had never hurt anyone. Marcus was in his clinic when that news arrived. He was treating a Silvari farmer who had broken his arm. The farmer saw Marcus's face change as he read the message. "Bad news, friend Marcus?" the farmer asked. Marcus looked at the gentle tree person who had become like family to him. How could? He explained that somewhere in space, people who looked like this farmer had murdered human children. "Yes," Marcus said simply. "Very bad news." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He walked outside his small house and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, Admiral Chun was trapped on the station. Somewhere up there, human families were separated by an invisible wall they couldn't cross. Somewhere up there, the real attackers of Vega 7 were probably laughing. Marcus remembered Admiral Chun's words from 5 years ago. Humans don't forget. He wondered if the aliens who had done this remembered those words. He wondered if they should. 3 months into the quarantine, Marcus received another message. This one was different. It was coded and came through channels that weren't supposed to exist anymore. The message was short. Begin recording everything. Every face, every name, every ship number, every cruel word, every lie they tell, every innocent person they hurt. We remember. We will make sure others remember too. The message was signed with a simple SC. Marcus deleted the message, but he remembered every word. That night, he began keeping a journal. He wrote down the names of every alien soldier who was cruel to humans. He wrote down every Silvari who asked why their human friends were being punished. He wrote down every news report that lied about human actions. He was not the only one. Across the galaxy, humans in quarantine camps and isolated colonies began keeping records. They remembered faces, they remembered names, they remembered injustices, and in the depths of space, in places the aliens couldn't see, human ships that had been exploring the far edges of the galaxy began disappearing from all tracking systems. They went dark and silent, but they were not gone. They were watching. They were learning. They were remembering the galaxy had made a mistake. They had forgotten that humans don't just remember kindness and betrayal. Humans also remember how to disappear. 50 years passed in silence. The galaxy had almost forgotten about humans. The quarantine line around human space was still there, but no one watched it closely anymore. Most aliens believed the humans had probably died out by now. Cut off from trade and resources, how could they survive? Ambassador Kethfer, now very old, sometimes looked at reports about the human quarantine zone. The sensors showed no ships leaving human space. No signals coming out, nothing but empty darkness. Good, he would tell his assistants. The galaxy is safer without them. But Kethfer was wrong. Humans had not died out. They had done something much more dangerous. They had united in the quarantine zone. Something incredible had happened. Every human colony, every space station, every ship had joined together like never before in human history. There were no more separate nations, no more competing governments, no more wars between human groups. There was only one goal now. Remember everything. Prepare for justice on the hidden world of Haven, deep inside the quarantine zone. President Maria Santos stood before a wall that stretched higher than any building. The wall was made of crystal, just like the Galactic Council chamber. But this crystal was black, and it held memories. Every name was there. Every face. Every crime. Admiral Kethver of the Zephyrian Collective, who had threatened humanity and later helped frame them. General Voss of the Hegemony Fleet, who had fired on the evacuation ships from New Texas. Counselor Drex of the Mentari Empire, who had voted to extend the quarantine even when evidence proved human innocence. Captain Jules of the Cologne Republic, who had laughed when shown videos of human children crying in detention camps. Thousands of names. Tens of thousands. Everyone who had participated in the lies. Everyone who had hurt innocent humans. Everyone who had celebrated human suffering. But the wall also showed something else. The faces of human children born during the quarantine. Children who had grown up learning these names like other children learned nursery rhymes. Children who could recite the crimes committed against their people with perfect accuracy. "Report," President Santos said to the figure beside her, Director. James Park was 60 years old, but he looked older. 50 years of planning had aged him. He had been a young engineer when the quarantine began. Now he ran the most sophisticated intelligence network in galactic history. Phase Scouts report successful penetration of all major systems, Park said. We have agents inside every government, every military, every major corporation. They've been in place for decades. The aliens never suspected. President Santos nodded. How many? Over 2 million operatives across the galaxy. They've been having children, building families, becoming part of alien society. Some are now high-ranking officials. Others are simple workers who watch and listen. Santos looked at the wall of names. And they remember their true purpose? Every one of them, Park said. They receive coded updates through quantum communication channels the aliens can't detect. They know who they are and why they're there. Santos walked along the wall. She stopped at one section that showed images of the hegemony leadership. These were the beings who had planned the false flag attack 50 years ago. Most were dead now, but their children and followers still held power. What about our technology development? Santos asked. Park smiled for the first time in years. Beyond anything the galaxy has seen? 50 years of focused research with every human scientist working toward the same goals. We've made breakthroughs they can't imagine. He activated a holographic display. Ships appeared in the air, but they looked like nothing that had existed before. They seemed to be made of liquid shadow that shifted and moved. Phase ships, Park explained. They can move through solid matter, walls, armor, shields, nothing stops them. We can appear inside any enemy ship or station without warning. The display changed. Now it showed weapons that look like small suns, quantum disruptors. They don't just destroy matter. They unweave the basic forces that hold atoms together. One shot can reduce a battleship to its component particles. Santos studied the weapons. Are they ready? All of them. We've built a fleet larger than anything the galaxy has ever seen. It's hidden in pocket dimensions that fold space around themselves. The aliens could look right at our shipyards and see nothing but empty space. The display changed again. This time it showed a vast network of lines connecting every world in the galaxy. And this? Santos asked. Perfect intelligence, Park said proudly. We know where every alien leader sleeps. We know their daily routines. We know their families, their friends, their fears. We know which ships are where, which defenses protect which worlds, which politicians can be trusted and which are corrupt. Santos was quiet for a long moment. How many innocents will die when we act? Park's smile faded. That depends on how they respond to our demands. Our plans target only those who participated in the crimes against us. Military leaders, politicians who voted for the quarantine, officers who fired on civilians. We've identified exactly who is guilty and who is not. And if they refuse to surrender those people, then we expand the target list to include anyone who protects them. But we start small, we give them chances to do the right thing. Santos walked to another section of the wall. This one showed images of aliens who had tried to help humans during the quarantine. Ambassador Yuki of the Cologne Republic, who had spoken against extending the quarantine. Captain Narration of the Zephyrian Fleet, who had allowed human medical supplies through the blockade. Dr. Sass of the Mentari Empire, who had secretly treated human prisoners. "These ones are protected," Santos said. "It was not a question." "Absolutely," Park confirmed. "Our operatives have standing orders to keep them safe. Some don't even know they're being watched over by human agents." Santos reached the end of the wall and turned back. In the center was a special section with just one name. Admiral Sarah Chun. She had died 20 years ago. Still, a prisoner on the space station above, Kepler 442b, but her last words had become the motto written below her name. "Humans don't forget." "When do we begin?" Santos asked. Park checked his wrist device. "The quarantine field generators are scheduled for maintenance shutdown in 72 hours. Our technicians infiltrated the maintenance crews 30 years ago. When the field goes down, it will look like a technical failure. And then we remind the galaxy what humans remember." Santos nodded. She touched a control panel, and the crystal wall began displaying new information: ship movements, political schedules, guard rotations, everything they needed to know about their targets. "Send the signal," she said. "All units prepare for Phase 1. Across the galaxy, humans who had lived secret lives for decades received the same message. Teachers in alien schools, doctors in alien hospitals, workers in alien factories, engineers maintaining alien ships, soldiers in alien armies. They had been born human, but they had grown up as aliens. They spoke alien languages perfectly. They followed alien customs. They had alien friends and sometimes alien families who loved them, but they remembered who they really were. And they remembered why they were there. In the Zephyrian capital, a maintenance worker named Call received the message while cleaning the floors of the military headquarters. His real name was Michael Torres. His grandfather had been Captain Torres, who died defending human civilians during the quarantine on the Mentari homeworld. A teacher named Vess received the message while teaching alien children about galactic history. Her real name was Lisa Chun. Her great-grandmother had been Admiral Sarah Chun. In the Hegemony Fleet. A communications officer named Vec received the message while monitoring space traffic. His real name was David Park. His father was Director James Park. They all received the same instructions. Wait for the signal. Remember your training. Protect the innocent. But make sure the guilty understand that humans never forget. The galaxy was about to learn that 50 years of silence had not been 50 years of death. It had been 50 years of preparation. And now the time for remembering was over. The time for justice had begun. General Voss woke up to find a human sitting in his bedroom. The old Mentari warrior reached for the weapon beside his bed, but the human held up one hand. "Please don't," the human said calmly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to deliver a message." Voss stared at the figure in his room. It was a young human female wearing a simple black uniform. She had appeared in his private quarters on the most secure military base in Mentari space. The base that was supposed to be impossible to infiltrate. "How did you get in here?" Voss demanded. "The same way my colleagues got into the bedrooms of every other person on our list," the human replied. "We've been preparing for this moment for 50 years, Voss's mind raced. He was the general who had ordered the attack on the human evacuation. Ships from New Texas, that had been 50 years ago. He thought everyone had forgotten. What list? He asked, though he already knew the answer. The human pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic image appeared showing Voss as a younger officer standing on the bridge of his ship. In the image, he was giving the order to fire on defenseless human vessels filled with families. "You are General Voss, service number 7749 Delta," the human said. 50 years ago, you murdered 3,000 human civilians who were trying to evacuate their children to safety. You laughed when your officers reported the kills." Voss felt cold fear creep up his spine. That was war. The humans were enemies. of the state. The humans were innocent, the human replied. And now it's time for justice. She stood up from the chair she had been sitting in. Voss noticed she was very young, probably born after the quarantine began. But her eyes looked much older. You have 72 hours to surrender yourself to human authorities, she continued. Turn yourself in at any human embassy that will be established tomorrow. If you surrender, you will receive a fair trial. Your family will not be harmed. Your innocent soldiers will be protected, and if I refuse? Voss asked. The human's expression didn't change. Then we will come for you. And anyone who tries to protect you will be considered an accomplice to your crimes. She moved toward the window. Voss realized she was planning to leave the same impossible way she had entered. Wait, he called. What about my government? What about my people? The human paused. Your people did nothing wrong. Your government can negotiate with ours. But you, personally, will face justice for what you did to innocent humans. This is insane, Voss said. You can't just appear in our space after 50 years and demand we hand over our military leaders. We're not demanding anything from your people, the human said. We're demanding justice from you. She touched something on her wrist and simply vanished. Not like teleportation or cloaking? She just stopped being there. Voss ran to his communication panel and activated the emergency alert. Within minutes, his room was full of security officers and technicians. They scanned everything with their most advanced sensors. Sir, the chief technician reported, there's no trace of any intruder, no residual energy signatures. No DNA, fingerprints, nothing. But I spoke to her, Voss insisted. She was right here. We believe you, sir, the security chief said carefully. But our sensors show no evidence anyone was ever in this room except you. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out in hundreds of locations. Alien officials were waking up to find humans in their bedrooms, their offices, their most secure facilities. Each human delivered the same message. Surrender in 72 hours or face the consequences. Admiral Kethver, now ancient and barely able to walk, found a human waiting in his private study. This human was older, perhaps in his 40s. Ambassador Kethver, the human said politely. My name is Captain Chun. You may remember my great-grandmother, Admiral Sarah Chun. Kethver's forearms trembled. Sarah Chun is dead. She died in prison 20 years ago. Yes, Captain Chun said sadly. She died a prisoner on a station above, Kepler 442b, a station where she was being held for crimes she didn't commit. Crimes your people invented to justify destroying my species. The evidence was real, Kethver protested weakly. Captain Chun activated a device. The room filled with holographic images showing the real attackers of Vega 7. They were hegemony ships using stolen human transponder codes. The hollows showed hegemony officers recording fake human voices. They showed hegemony engineers planting human weapon fragments in the wreckage. We know who really attacked Vega 7, Captain Chun said. We've known for 49 years. We have recordings of the planning meetings. We have financial records showing who paid for the operation. We have confessions from lower-level operatives who felt guilty about what they did. Kethver stared at the evidence. It was overwhelming and undeniable. Why didn't you present this before? He asked. To whom? Captain Chun replied. The council that had already decided we were guilty. The representatives who celebrated when human children died. In detention camps? The authorities who extended our quarantine even when some of your own people proved our innocence? Captain Chun walked closer to the old ambassador. My great-grandmother told you that humans don't forget. You should have listened. What do you want? Kethver asked. Justice, Captain Chun said simply. You participated in the conspiracy to frame humanity. You voted to maintain the quarantine when you knew we were innocent. You bear responsibility for 50 years of human suffering. He handed Kethver a datapad. These are the charges against you. Conspiracy to commit genocide. War crimes against civilians. Fraud against the Galactic Council. The evidence is all there. Kethver looked at the pad. The evidence was detailed and complete. Every meeting he had attended, every vote he had cast, every decision he had made that had hurt humans. 72 hours, Captain Chun said. Surrender yourself for trial, and your family will be safe. Your innocent people will not be harmed. Refuse, and we will assume you are an enemy combatant. Captain. Chun moved toward the door, then stopped. Oh, an ambassador? You might want to call the other members of the old council. I believe they're all receiving similar visits tonight. By morning, the galaxy was in chaos. Reports were flooding in from every major government. Impossible infiltrations. Humans appearing. Insecure locations. Demands for surrender of specific individuals. Some officials tried to dismiss it as mass hallucinations. But then the humans appeared on every major news network simultaneously. The same young woman spoke from what looked like a simple white room. People of the galaxy, she said calmly. My name is President Maria Santos of the United Human Republic. 50 years ago, you were told that humans attacked a peaceful research station. This was a lie. The screen filled with the same evidence. Captain Chun had shown Kethver the real attackers. The planted evidence. The conspiracy. We have spent 50 years gathering proof of what was done to us, President Santos continued. We have also spent 50 years identifying every person who participated in these crimes against humanity. The screen now showed a list of names. Hundreds of them. Military officers, politicians, corporate executives, intelligence operatives. These individuals have 72 hours to surrender themselves for trial, Santos said. They will be treated fairly, but they will answer for their crimes. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is justice. The transmission ended, but not before showing something that made every alien government go cold with fear. Ships, thousands of them, appearing from nowhere around every major world, every important station, every military base. Ships like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Ships that seemed to be made of living shadow. The humans had returned. And they had brought an army, but the most terrifying part was not the ships, or the technology, or the impossible infiltions. It was the patience. 50 years of perfect, methodical preparation. 50 years of watching and waiting and planning. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you betrayed a species that never forgets and never forgives. The great crystal hall looked exactly the same as it had 50 years ago. The rainbow walls still shifted colors. The floating chairs still moved without sound. But everything else had changed. Where once thousands of alien representatives had sat in judgment of humanity, now hundreds of those same beings sat in chains. They were not treated cruelly. They had food and water. They had medical care. But they were prisoners waiting for trial. Admiral Sarah Chun had died 20 years ago, but her great-granddaughter now stood where Sarah had once stood. Captain Maria Chun wore the same black uniform her ancestor had worn. She looked around. The hall with calm eyes. At the center of the hall, a new platform had been raised. On it sat 12 judges. 6 were human. 6 were aliens who had proven their innocence during the dark years. Ambassador Yuki of the Cologne Republic was among them. So was Captain Narration of the Zephyrian Fleet. So was Dr. Sass of the Mentari Empire. This tribunal will now begin, said Chief Judge Harrison, an elderly human woman who had survived the quarantine camps. We are here to decide the fate of those who committed crimes against humanity and against justice itself. Ambassador Kethver was brought forward first. He was ancient now, his blue skin pale, and his forearms shaking with age. But his mind was still sharp, and his eyes still glowed with intelligence. Kethver of the Zephyrian Collective, Judge. Harrison said, you are charged with conspiracy to commit genocide, war crimes against civilians, and fraud against the Galactic Council. How do you plead? Kethver looked around the hall. Many of his old colleagues sat in the prisoner section. Some looked defiant, others looked scared. A few looked relieved that the truth was finally coming out. I plead guilty, Kethver said. Quietly, murmurs filled the hall. It was not what anyone had expected. You admit to these crimes? Judge Harrison asked. I do, Kethver said. 50 years ago, I helped create the lie that framed humanity. I knew the evidence was fake. I knew. Humans were innocent, but I was afraid of their potential for violence, so I chose to destroy them before they could threaten us. He looked directly at Captain Chun. I was wrong. Humans did prove to be dangerous, but not in the way I expected. They became dangerous to those who hurt innocent people. They became dangerous to those who chose lies over truth. Captain Chun stepped forward. What would you say to the families of those who died because of your actions? Kethver's voice broke slightly. I would say that I am sorry. And I would say that sorry is not enough. I am prepared to face whatever punishment you believe fits my crimes. Judge Harrison nodded. The tribunal will consider your plea and your cooperation. General Voss, you are next. General Voss was brought forward. Unlike Kethver, he looked angry and defiant. The old Mentari warrior glared at the human judges. With hatred, "This is illegal," he declared. "You have no authority over citizens of the Mentari Empire." "You committed crimes against humanity," Judge Harrison replied calmly. "That gives us jurisdiction." "I was following orders from my government," Voss insisted. Captain Chun activated a holographic display. It showed Voss on his ship 50 years ago, laughing as human evacuation vessels exploded. "These were your exact words," Captain Chun said. "Target the ships with the most children aboard. Make them suffer like they made us suffer. This is fun." The recording played Voss's voice clearly. He had not been following orders. He had been enjoying the slaughter. "You murdered 3,000 innocent people," Captain Chun continued, "including 800 children under the age of 10. "They were enemies," Voss said stubbornly. "They were families trying to flee to safety," Captain Chun replied. "They had no weapons. They posed no threat. You killed them because you wanted to." Voss said nothing. Judge Harrison made a note on her datapad. "How do you plead?" she asked. "Not guilty," Voss said. "I did my duty as a soldier. Very well. The tribunal will review the evidence and render judgment." One by one, the prisoners were brought forward. Some, like Kethver, admitted their guilt and expressed remorse. Others, like Voss, remained defiant. A few begged for mercy and claimed they had been forced to participate. The trials took 3 months. Every piece of evidence was examined. Every witness was heard. The humans had kept perfect records, but they also gave the accused every chance to defend themselves. When the verdicts came, they were careful and measured. Kethver, who had shown genuine remorse, was sentenced to exile on a small moon where he could live peacefully but never return to civilization. Voss, who had enjoyed killing innocents and showed no remorse, was sentenced to life in prison. The hegemony leaders who had planned the original false flag attack were sentenced to death. But even this was done humanely, not in anger. Corporate executives who had profited from human suffering had their wealth confiscated and were sentenced to work in refugee camps, helping those they had harmed. Politicians who had voted to extend the quarantine despite evidence of human innocence were banned from ever holding office again. But the humans did something unexpected. They also put themselves on trial. Captain Chun stood before the tribunal and said, "We too must be judged. We infiltrated your governments. We deceived your people. We caused fear and uncertainty across the galaxy. But you did this in pursuit of justice," Judge Yuki pointed out. "Yes," Captain Chun replied, "but the methods we used were extreme. We should be held accountable." The mixed tribunal debated for days. Finally, they reached a decision. "Humanity acted in self-defense and in pursuit of justice," Judge Harrison announced. "However, some of your methods were questionable. Therefore, humanity will accept responsibility for governing the galaxy for the next 50 years. "Captain." Chun looked confused. "Governing the galaxy?" Judge Yuki spoke up. "Humanity has proven they remember justice and injustice with perfect clarity. They have shown they can plan and execute complex operations while protecting innocence. They have demonstrated mercy toward those who wronged them. The galaxy needs guardians," added Captain Narration. "Beings who will ensure that what happened to humanity never happens to any other species. Judge Harrison nodded. Humanity will serve as the galactic peacekeeping force. You will prevent wars, protect the innocent, and ensure that justice is served fairly across all worlds. And if we refuse? Captain Chun asked. Then you will have proven that power corrupts even the most just, Judge Harrison replied. And the galaxy will find other guardians. Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment. She thought of her great-grandmother, who had stood in this same hall 50 years ago and warned that humans don't forget. We accept, she said finally. But with conditions. Name them, Judge Harrison said. Every species will have representation in the new government. No one will be ruled by others without having a voice. And most importantly, we will create a new memory wall. Not just for human suffering, but for all suffering. Every injustice, every war crime, every genocide will be remembered forever. So that no one forgets, Judge Yuki said softly. So that no one forgets, Captain Chun agreed. The new galactic government was established with its capital on a neutral world between human and alien space. The memory wall was built in the center of the capital city. It showed the faces of every victim of injustice, from every species. Throughout galactic history, children from all worlds came to study the wall. They learned the names of those who had died. They learned about the crimes that had been committed. They learned why justice mattered. Ambassador Kethver, now living quietly on his exile moon, received a message one day. It was from Captain Chun. You asked once why humans didn't seek revenge, the message said. Now, you know, revenge is about the past. Justice is about the future. We chose the future. Kethver looked up at the stars from his small garden. Somewhere out there, humans were keeping the galaxy safe. They were preventing wars. They were protecting innocence. They were ensuring that no species would ever again face what humanity had endured. He had been wrong about humans 50 years ago. They were dangerous, but not to those who chose peace and justice. They were only dangerous to those who forgot that every being in the galaxy deserved to live free from fear and oppression, and humans, as they had always said, never forget.